everyone, and welcome to Brain Talk webinar. Brain Talk webinar is an online platform where scientists and researchers have the opportunity to share and present their research work that is related to machine learning and computational science. I'm Ghadi, a PhD student at the University of Oslo, and it gives me great pleasure to co-chair this webinar with Sajjad Ahmadi from the University of Oslo and Moeen Naqvi from Simula Research Laboratory.
Today we have an interesting presentation. After the presentation, we will have a question and answer session, and audiences can post their questions on YouTube live stream. Today's presentation is given by Valter Uotila. Valter Uotila is currently in his second year of pursuing a PhD in computer science at University of Helsinki. His research focuses on exploring the potential of quantum computing in data management and database optimization. He's also interested in applying category theory to establish a link between quantum computing and databases. To date, he has published several papers, including studies on the application of category theory to multi-model databases. In one of his recent papers, he identifies several database issues that can be resolved using quantum computing techniques. Hello, Valter. The floor is yours. We are looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, and especially thanks for Sajjad, who kindly invited me to give this presentation. My name is Valter Uotila. Hello, everyone. I'm supervised by Professor Jiahen Lu, who is the professor responsible of databases at the University of Helsinki, and also supervised by Professor Jukka K. Nurminen, who is responsible of quantum computing at our university. And the title of this talk is a SQL query classification with a quantum natural language processing approach, and quantum natural language processing uses quantum machine learning. And actually, I'm quite regular presenter also at the Nordic AI Meet, and this presentation is now the extended version of that talk that I gave at the Nordic AI Meet 2022 last fall. But I don't assume that you are really familiar with quantum computing, and I will not precisely define what quantum computing is. It's a quite large topic, but I want to give a bit of intuition how we approach problems in quantum computing. So let's check out. Let's see this kind of graph where we have 2 points B and A, and we would like to find the shortest path from point B to the point A. And now in this graph, you already see that it's the gray line there. And if you approach this type of problem classically, you usually use somehow like loop over the nodes and edges, and you do comparisons and this type of like element by element approach. But I want to approach this first with ants, and let's assume that these ants live at point B where they have their nest, and then we allow these ants to use only the edges, so they can walk only on the edges here. And then what we do, we put some sugar to the point A, and then what happens that these ants start to go around the graph, and if we wait maybe relatively long time, we will find out that these ants have found the shortest path from the food back to their nest, and they will walk on this path. So we can basically view the solution by studying the ants. And this type of algorithms, or this ant behavior, has inspired these ant colony optimization algorithms that you must be aware of. So and now I want to connect this to the quantum computing. So we also need to think a bit differently when we start to solve problems with quantum computers. So now, well, we are busy people, and we don't have time to wait the ants to find the best route. So what people decide to do, we build a quantum computer, and we want to solve the problem a lot faster. So the key idea here is that instead of using ants, we use some quantum mechanical elements like electrons or photons, and we assign these electrons, and for example electrons, we assign these to the nodes, and maybe you know, like the electrons can have this kind of spin value, which can be pointing at least to upwards and downwards. So these electrons will be in this kind of superposition state in the beginning. And then besides that, we have these quantum mechanical elements at each node. We also introduce certain interactions between them. So now in this graph, these interactions are described by these black arrows. And we can do so that when the nodes are nearby, then also the interaction between them is stronger. And now if we have encoded this problem correctly, and then we just wait a few microseconds, and then we come back and see the result, we will find out that approximately, for example, in this case, these spins will be pointing upwards on the nodes which show us the shortest path. So this is now very roughly the idea how we can approach like quantum mechanical problems. So as a key points here that I want to deliver you now with this beginning example is that we have certain elements that can be in multiple states simultaneously, and this is called superposition. Then we have these interactions between the elements, and these interactions have certain value or weight, and this is called entanglement. And then also when we perform operations, when we perform these operations, we kind of perform them to the whole system simultaneously. So we do not really have this kind of idea that we can pick an element and do something to that, but we need to do it whole at once. And then finally there is the measurement, or when we read the solution from this system. Yeah, this doesn't describe quantum computing very formally, but I think this delivers the idea that we need to think a lot differently. And then the question is like, could we utilize this type of systems as a machine learning model or as a subroutine in a machine learning model? And yes, the answer is definitely yes. So and I want to motivate this a bit also, like why should a machine learning researcher be interested in quantum computing? So I want to first like show my first impression that I didn't really know like how machine learning could help quantum computing, but then usually we have this idea that quantum computing will provide some almost like a magical speed ups and computational power to machine learning and any kind of computational tasks. But what I actually claim here, and what is also other researchers are proposing, is that this view is a bit wrong, or at least this will be very future. So, and I want to change this with this idea that machine learning can be really integrated as a part of quantum computing, and then on the other hand, quantum computing can offer us new ways to build and design and execute machine learning models. And also maybe we could use cost functions which are hard to simulate classically. And what is in the heart of this all is that both machine learning and quantum computing are based on linear algebra and probability theory. So actually this formalism that these both are relying on, it's very similar. And now, what can we do with the quantum computing when we are considering it from machine learning perspective? So first of all, like quantum circuits form our machine learning model class, and this will be also apparent. You will see my work as an example where we will develop a machine learning model where these circuits form this model class. And then we can basically train these circuits with the gradient-based methods. And you will also see an example of a method that we can use to train these circuits. And then there is this problem that our data is usually classical. So we cannot just immediately map it into a quantum computer. So we need to have some kind of data encoding that we can actually process the data with a quantum computer, and this is very key a key challenge. And in this work, I will introduce basically a bit non-conventional encoding method. And then finally, there is always this question about like, do we actually have a quantum advantage in quantum machine learning? Like, will will this quantum computing, will it make these things faster or already at near-term scale? And an answer is yes, if you just understand these quantum advantages at right way, or you accept it in a certain sense. But I will not talk about this, and I'm not really familiar about this topic, but you should be able to find a lot of material about that. So let's see the outline of this actual presentation. So first I will talk about how we encode these SQL queries into quantum circuits. So this will be basically the data encoding part. Then we use this, we train these parameters in these circuits to predict metrics about these SQL queries, which is basically this training phase. And then finally, I will show you some of the first initial results and outcomes of this framework. So so let me first introduce the actual problem here. So we have, so I'm a part of database research group, and we deal still very much with relational databases. And there is now a relational database which has information about cats and also some information about customers. And now how this relational database usually works from the user's perspective is that users have these SQL queries, and then they send them to the database, and the database executes them, and then we get the results, which are basically tables containing tuples. And now the classical problem is, how should we execute these queries? How should we optimize them? And in order that we can optimize these queries, we should be able to estimate like how many records, how many tuples these resulting tables contain. We would also know some query execution times and be able to estimate the cost, which is a value defined by the database. And all of these estimations affect on the query optimization, resource allocation, and transaction scheduling. So as the previous slide suggested, like this is very in the core of the database research. And this is one of the most researched problems in database field, and there are a lot of very well working classical algorithms that basically are able to solve this problem in many ways. So there's the classical machine learning, and then these kind of rule-based methods, and they give usually good estimates and predictions. And now what we are doing in our work is that we want to extend this field with the quantum computing-based methods. And in this work, we formalize the problem as a classification problem. So what does this concretely mean is that when we have this fixed query, we ask like, will this query be executed in interval, for example, 100 to 200 milliseconds, or will this query contain like 100 to 200 tuples? So let's take a look at how we encode these queries into quantum circuits. So first of all, this is based on the quantum natural language processing, QNLP. And there they have seen that, well, natural language has this grammatical representation. And then they have noticed they have defined a mapping from this grammatical representation to quantum circuits. And now what we noticed that, SQL queries also can be expressed with grammars, very well-defined grammars. So why wouldn't we use this similar kind of mapping with a different rules to map these SQL queries to these circuits? And there's also other application for music. So the researchers have basically found grammar that describes music snippets and develop similar kind of framework for those. And some of the packages that I concretely use here are Lambek, which is a quantum NLP package. Then I use some category theoretical package, DiscoPy, and then I use Penylane and Ticket, which are like quantum computing software packages, and then this Google's JAX, which is basically just speeds up the learning process. And now if we go to the actual encoding process, it starts so that we have these fixed SQL queries, and then what the database does, it basically produces this context-free grammar diagram, which is now visible here. it contains a lot of information, but if we focus to this, we see that we can pick part of this diagram, for example, this select clause. And what we do to this select clause here, when we represent it with the context-free grammar, we can define a mapping to other grammar which simplifies this a bit. So we see that we have more boxes on this left-hand side than on the right-hand side, and also this naming changes a bit. And what is nice here that this functor that is in the middle that we use to map this, it has very nice category theoretical precise definition, and it's actually also relatively easy to implement with this category theoretical package that I mentioned earlier. So we perform this type of mapping for each of these diagrams, and then what we obtain is we obtain a bit of different type of diagram, which is called pregroup grammar diagram. And now the key point here is that this pregroup grammar diagram is a simpler. It contains basically less boxes, and the typing here is a bit simpler. But anyway, we still claim that when we use this functor, this certain sense, this grammar, this diagram here encodes the same information about the query. And now what we can do here, like you see, like this pregroup grammar diagram has these gaps. And what we can do intuitively easily is that we can make these gaps straight. So we just raise the boxes up and we perform this to the whole diagram. And then we get basically this pregroup grammar diagram without gaps. And this is also a functorial process, and it keeps the diagram the same. And then finally, now from this pregroup grammar diagram, which doesn't have gaps, we can map it to the quantum circuit so that the quantum circuit has parameters. And this is also a functor, and actually it's maybe a class of functors because it has a certain parameters that we can modify and produce different kind of circuits. And now, so as a summary, we start from these SQL queries, and with this functorial transformation, we get these parameterized quantum circuits. And now we want to a bit like focus on these circuits. So what are quantum circuits? So this is a lot different from the classical computing. So first of all, in this case, you need to read the circuits from bottom to up. So time flows up and upwards. We start from the initial state 0, and this one wire that goes through here is basically a qubit. And then this qubit has the state. Usually it starts from 0 state, and then this state gets modified when we apply gates. And these gates are like functions that modify the state, the input state, and then the output difference state. And then finally, when we have applied all the gates that we have wanted to apply, we measure it, and the measurement result is always, well, in single qubit case, it's always 0 or 1. So that's the whole process basically. And then what I want to point out here are these two type of gates where we have actually now parameters. So, and the key thing here now is that we want to be able to optimize these parameters in a way that when we run this circuit on a quantum computer, the result that we get from the quantum computer will say some prediction about this query that we originally used to create this circuit. Now we have this circuit construction. So let's go to the training phase. So basically, this is a work where I needed to construct my own data set because all the classical data sets that database researchers use, they are pretty large and the queries are relatively long, and they would produce so large circuits that we cannot execute them on any existing hardware. So I made a training data, test data, and validation data, and so that created these SQL queries, run them on a Postgres database with certain data, and then I collected basically just 450 training points, which are like query ID and time, how long it took to execute the SQL query in a database, or then query ID and cardinality, so the query, how many tuples we get when we execute. And then I did the same for collected the test data and validation data. And then also I performed this encoding process for these SQL queries. So I took the same very simple SQL queries and produced these training circuits, test circuits, and validation circuits with the previously described functorial encoding. And now we have the whole setup ready, so we can start the actual training phase. And this optimization is done with the simultaneous perturbation stochastic approximation algorithm SPSA, and this algorithm basically approximates the gradient that these circuits have. So we start so that we take these training circuits and validation circuits. Then we do a bit of modification to previous research so that we do not pick all the training circuits initially, but just a subset of them. And we noticed that when we this kind of incrementally increase the number of circuits, we actually obtain a better results. So, and then we focus the subset of these circuits, and we initialize the parameters. First, we initialize them randomly, and then in the coming epochs, we basically use when we add more circuits, we use the previously found good parameters. But initially, we use random, and then we measure the circuits and do a certain post-selection process. And then we calculate this basic cross-entropy loss between these training and validation data. And based on these losses, the SPSA algorithm basically adjusts these parameters in these circuits and also adjusts hyperparameters in the algorithm. And we run this certain number of times. And now, when we have executed this optimization phase and we have found sufficiently good parameter values, the question is, how does this optimized circuit work as a classifier? So let's see like that we have the SQL query, we have translated that one into a circuit, and then we have these parameters. We pick parameters and substitute them in the circuit, and then we get something which looks like this. And now in this case, we can run this on a quantum computer, and we actually need to run it multiple times. And we do so that when we run it, we only select those results where, or basically when you run this type of circuit on a quantum computer, you will get a bit string which contains some value for this first wire and then some values for these other wires. So basically we get a 6-character long bit string here. And we only consider those bit strings where all these 5 last bits are 0. And then when we find such bit string, when we are running this, we will see the first one, and then this, when we run this sufficiently many times, this will give us a distribution over zeros and ones, depending on the first wire, first qubit here. And we use this result. If we get more ones than zeros, then this result will get classified as a 1 and other case as a 0. So let's take a look at some initial results that we have got. So basically, the most reasonable field where we can compare this comes from the quantum NLP. And in the quantum NLP, they have had 2 kind of cases, a meaning classification case and relative prediction classification case. These are a bit different from NLP perspective, but the key point here is that in their work, the training error has been somewhere around 17%, and test error around 20%. And in this second case, this one has been 9.4, and then here like around 28. on test error. So this gives us some comparison, and this has been basically a binary classification case. And in our work, I would say that our results are very much in line with these results from quantum NLP. So basically, it seems that this type of quantum machine learning model is able to also do other things than just classify sentences. And so what are these figures describing is that incremental training process where we start with a small number of circuits, then we'll add more training data. And then when we add more training data, we see that also the accuracy of the model gets better. And finally, when we use all the training data, or we do not even need to use all the training data, which is maybe a bit surprising, and I don't think that we have really good answer like why this happens, and this is very interesting too. But anyway, we will reach this about 80% accuracy here, and then it's something about 90% accuracy on the on test training data and 80% on test data. And then similarly, if we see this cardinality classification, we obtain pretty similar results. So anyway, we reached pretty similar level as this quantum NLP has reached. Although in our case we have this over 600 queries, whereas the quantum NLP has used about 100 sentences. So we are a bit scaling this up compared to their work. And then there's the question like binary classification is maybe a bit like still a relatively simple class problem. So what if we want to do like multi-class classification? So the same framework allows us to do multi-class classification very simple way. But in this case, it is a lot harder, and we are still working on finding a good way to build these circuits and train them. But anyway, we see that there is probably some learning happening here, so that we reach in 4-class classification we reach an accuracy which is maybe around between 40 and 50%, and then also similarly here for this for the cardinalities. But I think there is a lot of things to try out in this multi-class classification case, and this is still a bit of open problem. So and then we have this question like, can we say that the model really works, and can we like basically can we study if there are some problems in this quantum computing model, and can we be able to make it a bit more explainable? So for this, I think one of the good things that quantum computing can offer for machine learning is that quantum computing has a lot of this kind of tools to actually measure like quantum mechanical properties of these models that can be used to explain this machine learning model. But actually, I think maybe this expressibility is something that also is studied in classical machine learning, but in quantum computing this gets a very nice visual interpretation. So if we think that we have a single qubit, and this single qubit, the single quantum mechanical element, it can be described with a sphere. And now if we think that we have this single qubit, and we apply just a single operation with a single parameter, what we obtain in this case is that we actually we can only reach points that are on the circle here, on the red circle around the sphere. So this describes that if you develop the model which has kind of too little operations and too little parameters, you can actually detect that we can never reach sufficiently many points on the sphere. And then on the opposite end, we have this case that if we add basically 3 gates, 3 operations, and 3 parameters, we reach the state where we can actually reach any point on the sphere. And then we have all the combinations between these two. So this is one metric that we can use to describe this quantum machine learning model. And then there is the second one, which is a lot more quantum mechanical measurement that we can use, and this is entangling capability. And this can be explained roughly so that if we think that we have two qubits, so we have 2 quantum mechanical elements, and then as I described previously, we can introduce these interactions between these elements. And in the one end, we have the case where there is no interaction. There's no entanglement, and these qubits do not interact with each other anyway. And in this case, we can assign a value 0 to this entangling capability. And then on the opposite end, because of quantum mechanical postulates and because of quantum mechanics, there is a fully entangled system, which is called a Bell state. And we cannot entangle these 2 qubits more than this much. And then we have everything between that. So this is also a measure that we can calculate from each circuit that we have. And now what I have done is that I have calculated these measurements, these metrics for this specific SQL classification quantum machine learning model. And in the expressibility case, this expressibility can be also visualized as this type of histogram. And basically, this histogram, as I see it, is that it tells us that we are able to express like necessarily all the states on the sphere. Although it seems like that we have a bit of like more here in the middle, which would mean that the points tend to gather around the equator on the sphere. But anyway, it seems like that at least there isn't any problem, and also we can calculate very specific value, which is called this Kullback-Leibler divergence value, which is also used in classical machine learning, and in this case it's 0.017. And the previous research in this paper found that the favorable expressivity value would be somewhere below 0.02. So this also indicates that at least there shouldn't be any serious problem with expressibility. And then if we also see this entangling capability, in this case, I have calculated for each circuit, so that all the circuits are here, and then the entangling capability values are plotted here, and we see that it goes somewhere, usually somewhere around 0.5 and 0.6 mostly. And the previous research, this same paper pointed out that the favorable entangling capability value would be somewhere between 0.4 and 0.7. So also this suggests that at least it doesn't look like there is any problem with this. And also, why we would like to know these values is that if these values are too high, then it indicates that this quantum machine learning model is probably expensive to train, and we don't want that. But on the other end, we also want that it is capable to express, and it's capable to learn. So we want to be sure that these values aren't too low either. So yeah, and then I want to summarize a bit about our quantum computing for databases research. So this is definitely a small but growing field in database research, and this work is a part of a paper which is currently under review. So the paper is here, and then just on this week, this Monday, I also represented other work at a workshop at ICD 2023 conference, which was about optimizing virtual machine and task allocations in cloud infrastructures from sustainability perspective using quantum annealers. And quantum annealers are a bit different type of quantum computing paradigm. And then we are going to have a tutorial about quantum machine learning at SIGMOD conference. And then also we will organize an international workshop on quantum data science and management at VLDB. And also the submission is open for this workshop, and you are also welcome to submit your work here. And then there is a lot of future work that we can do on this topic. So first of all, as I mentioned already, we would like to increase accuracy for this multi-class classification, and this necessarily contains two aspects, so that we are searching for correct circuits, because we can modify these circuits. We have 3 parameters that produce different types of circuits, and then also we would like to find the correct hyperparameter values for this SPSA algorithm. And then there is this question like how large queries can we predict, and because some of the modern queries are very long. Then we think that this grammar-based approach must not be the only way to encode these circuits. So what kind of circuits would work the best? For example, one interesting idea that we have is the idea that we could use the query optimization plan, and because that is usually also, it has also a tree structure, so we would be able to map that tree structure to a circuit and then optimize that, and also maybe gain some interesting results from there. And then we might be also able to keep these circuits shorter. And then there are also many other gradient-based optimization approaches besides SPSA, and also the quantum machine learning community is exploring these quite widely. And then partly related to this previous point is that we can use this Penny-Lane and Qiskit and use their methods and utilize their noise models. And then also we would like to run this on actual real quantum computing hardware. So currently we are just using the simulators. So as a conclusion, so this work develops a quantum machine learning based method to predict metrics for SQL queries in relational databases. And this method can be basically divided into 2 phases. So first is this encoding phase, where we encode these SQL queries into circuits. And then later we optimize these circuit parameters to predict these metrics. And I think the results are very promising, and at least the binary classification results are in line with the previous results obtained in the quantum NLP. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter, for the very interesting presentation. I have wrote down so many questions, but I will just go with a few, and then if someone else has any more questions, we might discuss. One thing that I didn't really get when you talked about the training phase, like the training where you split the data between training and validation and test, right? Then you said that you calculate the cross entropy between the training data and the validation data, right? Or at least that's what I understood, but I didn't get that part. If you can go to that slide where you show the training. Yes, this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So what do you exactly mean by, like, how do you calculate the loss between the 2 data sets? Because usually the way I understand it, the cross entropy is that usually you have some ground truth labels and you compare them to the probabilities of your model, right? But you only use like one data set, but I don't understand how do you use 2 data sets to calculate the loss.
It's maybe a bit unclear here, but basically the thing is that we measure these circuits, and when we measure the circuits, basically maybe this slide describes that. So we have a circuit and we measure it, and then we get the result from this circuit. And then we compare this result with the training data and with the validation data, and we calculate that cost from that.
Okay, so are you in a sense also using like the validation data in some sort in the training?
Yeah. It seems like this SPSA algorithm is also using the validation data there.
Okay, yeah, because that's a bit different, like to the standard thing, you know.
Yeah, it is probably, But this was actually, I think this was how also some other work was using that, and also I think the algorithm where they developed this, I think they actually recommended to using this validation data that it but anyway, like during the training phase, this validation data, like it's like also evaluated, also compared with it, and
I see.
And that should affect the process.
Yeah. And then you said something about expressibility and this factor that should be less than 0.2.
Yes.
Yeah, so you said you calculate the KL divergence between what distributions exactly? Is it between like the distribution that you show and some like template distribution, or what's the other distribution that we compare against?
So that's a very good question. So the other distribution that I use to calculate is called Haar distribution. And this Haar distribution is basically this distribution that if we just basically equally sample points from the sphere.
Okay, just yeah, please.
I mean that's the other distribution.
Okay, yeah. So like roughly like a uniform distribution on this sphere in a sense. I see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I have some other questions, but if Sajjad or Moeen have any other questions?
Yeah, can I start with a very basic question from a beginning slide? When you were introducing the quantum models, you have mentioned that it was, at least my understanding, in quantum models we replace the nodes, the neurons, with superpositions, and we know that these up-down spines in electrons, quantum systems like electrons, they are very much interacting with together. They have repulsion, they have attraction. But in neurons, we have neuron interaction in some models. But how can you please describe about this complex system? How you deal with these interactions? How are you going to cancel it in your model, or you have some assumptions for it?
That's a good question, and I think like it's maybe also related to the hardware at some level, like because the interactions are actually realized at the hardware level. So at the algorithmic design, we just like design that there should be interaction here and it should have this strength, and then we basically map it to the quantum computer, and then I'm not exactly sure like how this hardware actually realizes the interaction or the entanglement there. But anyway, it is at least usually these quantum computers they have a certain like a topology, or they have these qubits are like nodes in a graph, and then these edges describe those like kind of paths that we can use to create these interactions. So at the current devices, we are not able to create interaction between every qubit. Usually. So usually they are a bit isolated, and we can only like maybe make an interaction between certain qubits and then the qubits nearby that one. So
Great.
But yeah, I think it's like
it's
yeah,
more hardware based interactions. There are a couple of questions posted in the channel. That one of them is about can we say that the circuits are same as epochs in usual machine learning models? I remember in one of your slides, yeah, it's a good question. You were describing about the more circuits, the better results in one of your slides.
Yes.
This question wanted to know that how the circuits work. Can we replace it in usual machine learning models, but epochs, we say the more epochs, the better results, for example?
Yeah, I think like these circuits are maybe more like a training, like a data points, or so then there is the actually the training algorithm has epochs, and we run it certain like number of those epochs, and then so I would say that it's more like the circuit. A circuit is more like a data point.
Data points.
Yeah, and then I think like usually when we like increase the training data, also the results get better.
Yeah.
So I think basically these figures tell that type of story.
Very clear answer. Yeah. Thank you. And also the other question is, can you describe about a bit about the programming language and available platforms? By platform, I mean, I'm not sure what platform means here, but maybe he means like TensorFlow and PyTorch that we have in machine learning models. In quantum models, do we have any available platforms or any special programming language?
Yeah, that's very interesting question. Yeah, so I use I use these platforms. So this Lambek is the quantum natural language processing platform that it is especially developed for it implements almost exactly this process that I explained here, and it is also a platform that very nicely like integrates with this DiscoPy. So this is a category theoretical. You can model a lot of things with category theory, and you can use this package to basically implement those models. And what is nice that this DiscoPy and the Lambek, they are very like tightly integrated, so that it's easy to use them together. And then also this ticket is kind of on the background, so that this Lambek and DiscoPy can be easily connected with this ticket, and this ticket is kind of the like the layer that is I would say that it's kind of the layer that the user sees and writes the quantum algorithms, and then they get sent to the quantum computer. There's a lot of things going on also after you submit your circuit to ticket, but anyway, this is kind of the connection to the quantum computer.
Yeah.
And then the other package also which I really like is this PennyLane, and PennyLane is especially like for quantum machine learning, and they have been developing it in a sense that it is very easy to connect with different machine learning tools like PyTorch and TensorFlow and this JAX and probably something else also. And they also allow you to connect like different quantum hardware, so you can use IBM, Amazon, Google Circ, and all these most popular ones.
Great, thanks for your answers. So I'm done with my questions. There are other questions I have in my notes, but if Moeen has not any question, again, back to Ghadi, see he can continue or not. Yes, go.
I have one question. So can you explain a little more about the classification of execution times and classification of cardinalities? I did not completely understand like what the difference was and what was actually being classified.
Yeah, sure. So actually they aren't very different problems now. After running all of these, they are actually very similar. But of course the queries are a bit different, but there isn't very much like a difference in the structure. What slide could describe that best? So basically, I think like the idea is that we have the queries, and then if you think like so we have the query, and then before you execute it in a database, now with this platform you can do so that before executing it you can turn it into a circuit. Then you can pick the parameters that you have optimized, and you can put the parameters inside the circuit, and then you can run this circuit multiple times, and then finally you will get basically the result from the circuit. From in the binary classification case, you get it from this one qubit here, and this one qubit is basically 0 or 1, and then depending on how you have defined how you have constructed the training data, there is some like a threshold. I think in my work it is 33,000 tuples. So if the SQL query has less than 33,000 tuples, it will be classified to 0, and otherwise it will be classified to 1. And then that tells us that it has less or more than that. It's from database perspective, it's a pretty like toy example. But if you think like that, you add qubits here, so the number of classes grows exponentially, so your accuracy also grows exponentially, and then if you have like 2 to the power of 5 or 2 to the power 10 classes, you get quite good accuracy. But also maybe I don't know if it works in those cases yet.
Thank you. This answers my question.
Oh yeah, great, thanks.
I have one last question, really quick question.
We are running over time.
In terms of training, how much training time, like compute, does it take? Is it easy to train these systems, or do you like spend like several days training them? Or
yes, it's well, I don't know. I think I'm not very like I'm not really like that type of like machine learning specialist. So I have my background in mathematics, so I don't know if I do the training like the most efficient way. But it takes a long time, and it takes long time because it's very slow to simulate these circuits. So we are sure that at least quantum computers are good at running these circuits. So it's very slow to run circuits, even if they're small circuits. It still takes quite a long time. So it is quite a long process, and a bit it can take days. Yeah, basically yes.
Yeah. So it's most likely that it's the simulation of the quantum computer that's taking time rather than the training steps themselves, maybe.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. Yeah. I think actually the SPSA algorithm is pretty like efficient on the training, and it doesn't really like it doesn't need that it doesn't need to evaluate the circuit very many times, but it's still every evaluation of a circuit is pretty expensive.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we've had enough questions. Thank you, Valter, again for your very interesting presentation, and thank you for Sajjad and Moeen for co-chairing this presentation. And see you on the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye now.